Welcome, Jet fans, to another episode of the Jets Life podcast. It's a victory Monday after the Jets defeat the New York Giants by a score of 13-10. It was a disgusting game. Not many things positive to say about this game outside of this Jets defense continuing to be a focal point of what this team is. We're a team that's going to win on defense and a team that really needs this offense to kind of take a step forward to apply a little bit less pressure. But I just this is where we expected to be in this game. I know there was some thoughts that the Jets could run away with this game. Expected it to be a little bit close. I did want for this game to be one of those shootout types of game where the Jets just kind of come out here and put the Giants away, especially with the backup quarterback, which eventually ended up being a third string quarterback after Tyrod Taylor had to leave the game. Um, but the first thing I want to just touch on is some takes that have been out there, especially by some in the New York media that hold a voice over what is in New York. And I just want to make sure that something doesn't get blown into proportion here. The Jets losing in this victory because of potential impacts to their draft positioning, and the fact that their season is been identified as being over because of what we saw against the Giants. I'm not going to say who said this. It's in the New York media. He's been going back and forth on the Jets, basically calling this like a failure of a season if they don't win the Super Bowl, which for 31 teams that is indeed the case. The whole point of playing football is to win a championship. That's what we all hope for when the season starts. Unfortunately, it doesn't that doesn't happen to be the case for 31 teams. And if it goes that way this season, it will be a failure. However, the fact that this victory is being called a loss because of the Jets finding out their season is done and they've hurt their draft positioning. This season has not been about the draft for the New York Jets. Let's just get there right away. The Jets are 3-3. We just won. Well, the Jets were 3-3 going into the game. Won that game. They are now 4-3 and are in the thick of a playoff push. For the Giants, it might be a different story. However, let's put this into perspective here. The Giants were going into this game, and while the season looks like it is over going into the game, the Giants needed to do their job and win this game. That was the whole point of them playing this football game as well. They needed to win this game, get Daniel Jones back, which it sounds like he's going to be coming back this week. There's been some reports that they're optimistic he should return. So the whole point of this whole situation for the Giants was they need to escape this game with a win, and then you could see how the rest of the season progresses. Look at the Lions and what they did last year. That's kind of the blueprint that you've been hearing a lot, very frequently, about what the expectations were for the Giants. Similar situation for the Jets. We all saw what's going on with the Jets right now. Aaron Rodgers is coming out there, and I'm no doctor, but from what I can see, it looks like this is a guy that is well ahead of schedule. Does it mean he's going to come back this season? I have no clue. Not sure what this injury timeline looks like. I'm not sure if what he's doing right now is, something you would normally see in a Achilles recovery 6 months down the road. I don't know if it's something you see 1 month down the road. But what I can tell you is he's definitely ahead of schedule. The fact that he's throwing the football and he's putting wood on that back foot means that there is an expectation that this guy at least has a percentage of a chance that he could come back. Because if that wasn't the case, why would he be pushing as hard as he is? If if he can't make it back this season, he just delay recovery, take the full 10 months, and he'll be back for training camp. That isn't the case. This guy has a little bit of a glimmer of hope that he can be back, and this whole team has that little glimmer of hope that if they just keep winning these dirty games, winning these ugly games, these hard fought defense just rolling teams. I mean, you talk about what the Jets defense has done this year. Against the Bills, held them to 16 points. Against the Patriots, held them to 15 points. Against the Chiefs, holding them to 23 points. Against the Broncos, 21 points. Eagles, 14. Giants, although it was with a third string quarterback, holding them to 10 points. This defense is tough. They're going to keep us in all of these games and most of these games. It's going to come down to Zach Wilson and this offense. And what we saw from Zach Wilson was ugly. It was definitely ugly. I can go through the stat line. He was 17 of 26, I believe it was, 17 of 36 for 240 yards. You know, a lot of that yardage came in the fourth quarter with 30 seconds left, those 2 big passes, and then overtime as well. For 59 minutes and 30 seconds, he was terrible. But when the team needed him to step up and make a play and get them into a position where they can bring it to overtime, because let's be honest, that was what the Giants were trying to avoid, overtime, because there's no way they were going to move the football on the Jets, as we found out. Um, the Jets were able to march down the field in 24 seconds and get into a position to kick a field goal, tie the game season. Instead, he gets the victory. His confidence is a little bit higher now. He was able to drive them down that field. He made the passes. He made the completions. You could even say on the drive before that, he threw a pass in there to Alan Lazard. May have been a little bit low. Would have been a tough catch for Alan Lazard to make, but he got close to it. Put it where it needed to be. I mean, he's making these throws. It's very strange how he cannot do it for 95% of the game, but then all of a sudden he turns it on late in the fourth quarter. But this is a team that has the ability to beat any of these teams that are on their schedule. Next week against the Chargers and the following week against the Raiders, I really do fully expect the Jets to come out and win those games. Um, Chargers a little bit more of a situation where the way that offense played on Sunday night last night, the way that they played, if that's the team we're gonna go against, it can be a tough situation. Zach cannot play the type of game he played against the Giants if we want to beat the Chargers. That's just not gonna happen. Um, but the way this defense plays, that statement can be as false as possible. Because if this is a one score game in the fourth quarter, we're not trying to put this in a situation where it's on Zach's shoulders, but he's shown us numerous times that he's able to put the game on his back. Against Buffalo, they were down by 10 points, came back and won it. Against the against the Chiefs, they were down big. I forget the score. I think it was like 20-3 at one point. Came back, tied it, and eventually the Chiefs won it. He never got a chance to touch the ball after he fumbled it at midfield. Chiefs go on to win that game. Against the Broncos, we trailed. Against the Giants, we've trailed. Against the Eagles, we've trailed. He's trailed in multiple games, and we've come out with wins in 4 games. Say what you want, but we need to support him as much as possible. And there's no reason not to. We are 4-3, and he's a piece of the puzzle. Is he the piece? No. That person is waiting in the wings. He is slowly working his way back to an Achilles recovery. Does he make it back this year, or does he make it back next year? We don't know. But what I do know is that this team is Super Bowl caliber with everything around the quarterback. It just comes down to can he execute, and can he get us in a position where we are playing games in December, meaningful games in December, similar to our goal last year. That goal has not changed. You play meaningful games in December, and if the way that this defense is playing, it's only going to get better. This is an all pro defense from top to bottom. You can't tell me many positions that we have a weakness on this defense. There are not. The screen game is scary. The Jets do not handle the screen game very well. But I mean, if you're going to dump it off and try and get yards all the way down the field, it's a tough task. The Chiefs did it on that final drive, and there have been situations, Dallas game, that they were able to execute that same game plan, chipping away down the field. But at some point, frustration comes in. The quarterback wants to make a play, and this defense has shown time and time again that when that quarterback wants to make a play, they will make him pay for it. And we've seen interceptions galore against some of the great quarterbacks. Josh Allen had 3 interceptions against us. Justin Fields had 3 interceptions against us. Patrick Mahomes had multiple interceptions against us. The list goes on and on of what the quarterbacks that this defense has played, and by Robert Saleh's words, have been embarrassed. Um, he brought those words back. He thought embarrassed may have been too strong of a word, but it's not false. He has made these quarterbacks look bad in games against this defense, and this season needs to progress in this way. So I do not want to sit here and hear anybody talking about how the Jets winning this game is meaningless because of draft positioning. That person really needs to look inwards because if you're talking about a team that's 3-3, if the Giants were 3-3 and he's talking about the Giants losing and affecting their draft positioning, then that is just the most idiotic take that I've heard in my entire life. At 3-3, you're playing for playoffs at any point in the season. I mean, these players, these coaches don't tank. There are situations where, you know, we have seen in the past, and I'm not going to accuse any teams of it, decisions that seem like they're putting themselves in a situation to tank for future draft capital. But that is not happening 6 weeks into the season. I mean, we've seen some miraculous things happen. I mean, let's go back to the Lions and how they started last year and how they ended. They were in the playoffs. They were in the playoff hunt like bracket or graphic that Sunday Night Football shows all the time. They were in that graphic late in the season until obviously the beginning of the season was too much to overcome. Um, you know, your record is what it is. However you get there is how you get there. At 3 losses, it is not a position for any team to be talking about how a loss, how a win is a loss in the future landscape of a team. That is absolutely like ridiculous. I just don't see how that's even something. But regardless, that again, I spoke about Zach Wilson and what he did on that final drive. um, bring us in position. It was 6-7 for a large majority of the game, beginning with the first drive in the second quarter, and it just looked like for the rest of the game the Jets just were not going to do anything, including the final 2 minute drive. What we thought was the final 2 minute drive. Let's put things into perspective here, okay? Because the Jets, obviously failed on that fourth down. Zach got sacked. Kayvon Thibodeau with a amazing game, three sack game. Um, but the Giants had a position with the Jets having one timeout left, and I forgot how much time was on the clock, a minute 20 or something like that. Giants were in a position to really bleed out the clock and even win the game with an aggressive play call. Let's put Brian Daboll in a situation where he went against his tendencies. Brian Daboll, who had a great year as a head coach in his first year, and in the second year has definitely come up with many different areas of adversity, starting with that first game against Dallas, getting punched in the mouth right away. Obviously, Daniel Jones' injury, obviously, Tyrod Taylor's injuries. But, you know, we've heard from similar people in the media how Robert Saleh would, you know, kind of falter with this team because he's not the quote unquote alpha male. Aaron Rodgers is, so on and so forth. I think what Robert Saleh has done through these first 7 games of the year has been outright remarkable when you consider the circumstances. This whole entire team could have packed their bags on this season after Aaron Rodgers went down and Zach Wilson came in, and this this front office and this coaching staff did not bring another quarterback in of starting caliber. They did bring in Trevor Siemian on the practice squad, but they did not bring in a starting caliber quarterback, which could have easily broken this locker room when a lot of these players saw what happened last year. But this entire team surrounded Zach Wilson. They've had his back and they're supporting him. Say what you want about what's happening on the field, but there are certain situations where players can get frustrated. But at the end of the day, when you hear these players talking about Zach, they all have his back. Um, could it be just talking to the mic? Could be. But you know what? They can easily, you know, say things that would diminish him. But that's not the case here. Robert Saleh has held this thing together and has gotten his team to 4-3. Brian Dable has not been the same. And in that situation that I'm referring to, um, first 3 downs were just runs with Saquon Barkley that led to a 4th and 1. In that situation, the Jets were down by 3 points, and the decision to be made was one: do we kick the field goal and bring the score to a 6 point game, where the Jets needed touchdown to win the game, which is a smart decision. I'm not saying it's not. But what we have seen from Brian Daboll in the past is when he has an opportunity to win a game, let's go back to his first game as a head coach against Tennessee. Um, Giants went down, scored a touchdown to tie it with an extra point, and his decision was, no, I'm not going to kick this extra point. I want to win the football game. I'm going to go for two. He ends up going for two. They end up winning that game, his opening game as a head coach. In this particular situation, the fact that he went against his tendencies shows, that in a game time situation, he went away from his tendencies, and that's what the Jets defense and that's what Robert Saleh as a head coach forced for him to do. He had to go away from what he would want to do in order to fight for a victory, and that decision cost him. Gano, who's been a great kicker, throughout his career and with the Giants, missed a kick, and with 24 seconds, we all know what happened. Spoke about it multiple times. Zach got us because of Kayvon Thibodeau's offsides. We were able to get down to midfield, and then obviously the pass to Lazard that got us into field goal range. Um, Brian Dable going against his tendencies. I mean, it just kind of speaks to what this team is doing. They're forcing the team to go against what they would normally do because that's probably the only way to beat this team because they are we've seen on multiple occasions this defense and this coaching staff scouts these opposing teams um, pretty thoroughly to the point where teams just can't do what they normally want to do. Um, the starting the game type of situation, starting slow, that wasn't a case here. It has been an issue in a lot of the first six games of the year, but this team is rolling. We're on a 3-game winning streak after a 3-game losing streak. We're now 4-3, and the ship's got to keep going. Garrett Wilson is showing every bit of what he is as a player. He is rolling. He's got another 100-yard game here in his career. He's on pace for a 1,000-yard season with Zach Wilson as quarterback. We all understand the deviation there with Zach and Aaron Rodgers, but Garrett Wilson is balling. I mean, he's a big piece of the reason why we won this game yesterday. Um, there's I don't know that the Jets are in the same situation they'd be in right now without Garrett Wilson and his big play ability. He's just got to keep rolling. Brees Hall, another player in this offense. It just has to, every play, every game. I mean, Garrett Wilson's making a play. Brees Hall's making a big play. I mean, Brees, the big reason. I mean, he's a home run. He's a home run hitter. He's a point getter. He's gonna put us in a position to get points. He's done it multiple times this year. He did it against Buffalo, multiple big runs that got us into field goal range. Um, and then did it in the Patriots game. Got us. Sorry. Losing my train of thought here. In the Broncos game, obviously the big 72-yard run, or however long that run was. And the Eagles game, iced it with a touchdown run. In this Giants game, he had the lone touchdown for the Jets on what was like a 50-yard reception for the touchdown. It's reaching a point here where a bit of an issue as far as the injuries are concerned. Connor McGovern had to leave the game yesterday um, with, you know, I believe there was some report on it. It was a leg issue, knee issue. It sounds like it's going to be a week to week type of thing. So you would fully expect that if Joe Tippmann is healing as quickly as he can, as Robert Saleh mentioned, that he's going to get some time at center, and then kind of keep rolling with whatever's left. Um, Wes Schweitzer, who filled in for Joe Tippmann after Tippmann left in the Eagles game, started this game at guard, moved over to center when Connor McGovern went out, and then eventually he had to leave with a calf injury. Um, and then just continue with injuries. Al Woods did lead every single game the Jets have won. They've lost the player because of an Achilles injury. So obviously Buffalo, Aaron Rodgers, Denver, we lost AVT, and now this game, Al Woods. So it's like every single game we had to sacrifice someone's Achilles in order to get away with a victory. But I do wish all those guys, speedy recovery. Especially with what's going on here with this team, you hate for any of these players to have to be drawn out here for for an extended period of time. This is a critical critical point in the season, and unfortunately, quick recovery for these others. um, Other than that, I mean, ignore any of the outside commentary on this team. It seems like in some cases the overall narrative is always looking for next year and always looking at, okay, how can this team improve through the draft, whatever. But that's not the case with this team. This team is fighting. This team is, winning games against solid opponents. I know yesterday was a not a solid opponent, but regardless, there was some juice in that game. It's New York versus New York. The Giants wanted that game just as bad as we did. Um, and fortunate for us, we were able to escape the game. All it took was 24 seconds. No problem. Jeff fans, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. Huge victory Monday for this team. Loved every minute of going through this with you guys. And if you can, please like and subscribe to my channel and help me grow. Appreciate the support. And let's go Jets.